We live in a rational world. We're absolutely certain that 1 and 1 equals 2, and it does. But the things that matter most to us, some people call it love, some people call it God, some people call it reason, is that other thing where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's the 3. Oh, great story. They're all everywhere. There are millions of them. Abraham Lincoln wins the Civil War, and then he decides he's got enough time to go to the theater. That's a good story. When Thomas Jefferson said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, he owned 100 human beings and never saw the hypocrisy, never saw the contradiction, and more important, never saw fit in his lifetime to free any one of them. That's a good story. You know, the stories that I like to tell are always interesting because the good guys have really serious flaws and the villains are very compelling. My interest is always in complicating things.
Ken Burns, everybody, a legendary documentarian, kind of a don in the space, really. I think he's one of the most famous documentary filmmakers in the world right now. He's known for making history films. I think he has one about Theodore Roosevelt. He has one about the Vietnam War on Netflix. That's pretty good. I'm trying to think about some other ones. There's a ton out there, okay? I've watched a few of them. The names of them aren't coming to me right now. But basically, I mean, if this doesn't tell you how famous he has an effect named after him on iMovie where you can basically like pan in on shots, like it zooms in for you. Like it's called the Ken Burns, and basically that's because his style of filmmaking takes these photographs and like zooms in on them super close, and then they might zoom over to the other side of the picture, and he kind of created that little thing that you probably see across a lot of different documentaries right now. But what Ken Burns is talking about there is what makes a story great versus average and cheesy. Okay, so when we think of something that's cheesy, usually when I think something's cheesy, there's 2 components to it. 1, there's a cringeworthy aspect to it, and 2, there's this feeling that, oh, I saw that coming. Okay, so like Rocky 5, all the Rocky movies are very cheesy. You could argue those are great movies, and which I would probably argue on that. I would probably argue on that side, but nonetheless, they're pretty much every turn. There's kind of some line that is over cliche and over expected and doesn't feel very new, and that's kind of what makes that series feel kind of cheesy. No disrespect. That's kind of what happens when 1 + 1 = 2. It's like, oh, this happens, so I can only expect X to happen, and then X happens, basically, if that makes sense. Very true, but not creative or fulfilling to watch or even make, I would assume. That's why you want your film to kind of have that 1 + 1 = 3 effect. So basically what he's talking about there is when the sequence of events that take place in a story are so that they feel greater than the sum of its parts. And I think he kind of touched on that, but I'm going to back it up a little bit. So storytelling is innate in human DNA. It helps us make sense of the world. That's probably why I'm so attracted to it. In my daily life, I love to try to tell stories to explain things that are happening. It's the only way to make sense of this really crazy and chaotic world, especially, crazy and chaotic. Talk about what's going on right now, but we tell compelling stories to make sense of things, right? And things seem to only make sense when there's some explanation that's greater than the simple cliche things that we know to be true in our life. When you start watching the movie and you finish watching the movie and the sequence of events leads to an emotional response, it leads to a mental realization or an epiphany. That's what happens when 1 + 1 = 3, when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what Ken Burns is referring to. That's what I think what people are referring to when they talk about things like God or the universe. We've been doing this since the dawn of time. It rains for 4 days straight. That's God taking pity on us and rewarding us and letting us grow crops. Maybe not, but we tell those stories to make sense of it. And we've been doing that. It's part of human DNA. And it's quite possible that the greatest stories of all time, and they even influence evolution and the way people think. Now you start talking about things like the influence of culture and such and so forth. So we're trying to do something very similar in the documentary that I'm working on right now called Manimal. It's about a professional fighter out of Brooklyn, New York, and we just filmed it all last week. It was a blast. I learned a ton. It was basically a transformational experience for me. I kind of feel like a new man after being around these professional athletes for an entire week and these legendary mixed martial art coaches. And you guys, I wish I could put it into picture for you, which actually I'm working on the behind the scenes video. So stay on the lookout for not only the behind the scenes, but the documentary, which we're working super hard on, and it's going to be a long-term project. But if you guys enjoyed the content, nonetheless, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with a friend who you think could benefit. I'm talking about your friends who are filmmakers, who watch a ton of documentaries, who might be interested in getting into this game or trying to build a huge community here based around this beautiful art form. And we would love it if you subscribed and shared and liked and all that stuff. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys again in the next video. But without further ado, peace out.